This is Christopher Jon Bjerknes. It is September 16th, 2025. All my life, I've been able to see the future. I can see things that happen far away. I know when people want to communicate with me, I can sense it. And I have a proven public record of predicting things for 30 years that no one else on earth has predicted. I'm 1 out of 8 billion with this track record. A recent example was 3 times in a row I predicted when Israel was preparing to attack Iran, and I publicly warned Iran within days that this imminent attack was about to occur. No one else on earth did that even once, and I did it all 3 times with exact precision. I do this every day, multiple times a day. I've been doing it publicly for 30 years. Everyone who knows me well knows that I have this gift. Anyone who has been following my work knows that I have a documented public record for 30 years of having insights that no one else on earth has, analyzing events, analyzing politics, religion, philosophy, physics, etc., etc., etc. I have this gift that no one else on earth does, and it is very well documented. And the reason why I'm bringing this up today is I'm going to give you a very recent example of how I saw things in the Charlie Kirk assassination and publicly documented my insights, and they proved to be 100% correct. The real reason why I'm bringing this up is because all my life I have known that within my lifetime the enemy would set about to exterminate humanity. And I dedicated my life to doing scholarly research and providing my unique insights to the world to warn the world of what it is that I see coming. And I want to gain credibility for that, not only by my public track record, but by demonstrating to you the urgency, the absolute necessity that we have to defend ourselves from this oncoming onslaught. In 2006, I was publicly warning the Armenians that they were going to lose Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. They laughed at me and said that they could easily take out the Azeris as they had done in the past. I didn't laugh. I did my best to warn them. I spent a lot of my own money to warn them. I traveled to them. I gave a conference for them. I appeared on their television warning them about this. I warned them that they would be betrayed and that they were going to lose the southern part of Sihanouk province and the Zangezur corridor. I was laughed at the whole time, very publicly in the 90s. I warned that the Chinese had spies all over the United States, that Al Gore and Bill Clinton were selling out the United States, that Israel was selling out the United States, and that the U.S. was providing Red China with nuclear technology that would be utilized to build bombs to kill Americans, that they were going to steal the American economy, that their spies and traders within America would shift our industry to China and they would eventually surpass us. I was called a racist, an alarmist, a nut job for predicting all of these things that came true. I knew I had this gift very early on, maybe even when I was 4 or 5 years old. There used to be a corner store on Chicago Avenue called Wilson's. And on the floor, they had cases of Royal Crown Cola, RC Cola, in the tall glass bottles in 8-packs. And the old man who ran the store, when he wasn't busy chasing off little kid shoplifters, would sell these as single bottles. These single bottles, a small percentage of them, had a little 25-cent prize hidden under the cap beneath cork or later plastic. And I had the unique ability of anyone around to always pick a bottle that would have one of those 25-cent prizes. And I would get a feeling, a premonition, a vision that it was time for me to go to Wilson's and get my free bottle of soda pop. And I'd use one of those old Coke machine bottle openers that they had, and I would scrape it off. And every single time I had that premonition, I would win the prize and get my free pop. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I was standing by the front door with one of my older brothers, 5 years my senior. And we watched as my mom pulled off. And I told my brother, Mom is going to die. He slapped me in the face as hard as he could, but that's not what hurt. What hurt was that I had this vision of it. I knew it was coming, and I knew it was true. That was the first time that my mom went to visit a doctor for the problem that she faced. It wasn't long after that she passed away after being hospitalized many times. This is vitally important for me to disclose these personal things to you so that you understand when I am warning you that humanity is in tremendous, grave danger. I have been predicting, giving you the names, the times, the places that the enemy would strike, what they would do, who they would kill, how they would subvert the American government, NATO, the West, how they would pit East and West against each other. I've been giving these exact predictions for 30 years. And in all of my analyses, I've been providing unique insights that no one else on earth has. So let's cut to the chase. I'm going to show you how I predicted that the rifle used in Charlie Kirk's assassination was the rifle of the grandpa of the shooter. I specifically said grandpa's rifle. The shooter today, several days, maybe 5-6 days after I said that, when it was not known the age of the shooter, it was not known, there was no description of the shooter, I said that rifle was grandpa's rifle. And we now know from the district attorney of Utah County that the shooter himself said exactly grandpa's rifle. He didn't say grandfather. He said exactly as I had said, grandpa. I knew I had a vision that this was a Mauser 98 sporterized military action with a commercial trigger guard and floor plate, seated in a sporterized stock with a scope. And after that, we got a picture of the rifle, and it was exactly a Mauser 98 military action with a commercial trigger guard and floor plate in a sporterized stock that had been rebarreled. So let's look at all this so that you know that what I'm telling you is 100% true. It is not only 100% true, it is verifiable. I'm going to give you the timestamps on what I said. You can look up the URLs and see my posts. Anyone who has been following me knows that I am telling you the absolute truth about all of this. Anyone who's been following my work for decades, anyone who knows me all my life, knows that I am portraying these facts 100% accurately. And I am the only person on earth who has this documented record, public record, of accurately predicting things for decades upon decades. I have always been able to tell my friends and enemies alike what their fortune is, what their fate is. I have tried to warn friends about horrific things when they did not heed my advice. Those things inevitably befell them. The DA from Utah County gave a press conference, and in that press conference, he was reading these things off. He was talking about he didn't know whether or not the serial number had been scrubbed, which is one of the things I foretold. We'll get to all the things that I said. Let's get to what he said first. He talked about his grandpa and the rifle that he had, and that it came from his grandpa, and that the reason why he did this was to punish Kirk for his hateful rhetoric, which is what I said on the first or second day that this happened. But let's listen to the DA. You can see that there's a transcript here of what the DA said that was posted by Benny Johnson. I'll move this so you good people can see the URLs and verify what I'm telling you if you're so inclined.
The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a... The roommate.
Jeff Gray,
Police
Utah County District Attorney.
Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard."
Okay, so I'm going to move ahead in this. You now know that this is the District Attorney, Jeff Gray of Utah County, conveying the text messages that were exchanged between Tyler Robinson and his roommate. Pay careful attention.
Yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left.
His motive was the hatred, the vitriol that he believed that Charlie Kirk was putting out. His motive was to punish Charlie Kirk. I anticipated that back on September 11th. Everyone else was saying that Israel was behind this and that he was assassinated to silence him. Kirk's not that big of a deal to merit the hit to silence him. This was done as propaganda of the deed to pin it on some state actor. I later said that they would try to pin it on, that I was surprised that they had not tried to pin it on Iran. We'll get to it. But I specifically said that this was done to pin it on some state actor. Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said, implied that the Muslims, terrorists, had done something or had done it or compared it to Muslim terrorism. It was done to agitate civil unrest. Civil unrest was definitely agitated by all of this. we see the major figures in the alt media calling for cancel culture and eliminating our rights to free speech and punishing free speech. And we see civil unrest erupting all over about this. And most importantly, I said, or to punish his talk about some group or groups. So I called that. But that's one of the minor things that I called.
No evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. Them finding it. Roommate, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it.
Listen carefully.
Robinson again. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle.
If I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I not only predicted the motive, I said back on September 11th, mind you, this DA gave this press conference on the 16th, and mind you that we had no idea on the 11th how young this guy was, or that he may have swiped his grandfather's rifle. I said when Stephen Crowder reported what the ATF had disclosed to him about ATF and other law enforcement located an older model imported Mauser 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. I didn't doubt that at all. I knew that that's what it was. I said that that was perfectly consistent with everything that happened, and that was how I envisioned the shooter's rifle. A lot of people were, well, we'll get to that later. And I wrote on September 11th, before it was known how old this guy was, sounds like something from Grandpa's closet. The exact words of this guy. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. Who else on the face of the earth was saying on September 11th that this was Grandpa's rifle? Sounds like something from Grandpa's closet. A rechambered, rebarreled Mauser 98 carabiner in 30-06 could be a sporterized military action. I called it on the 11th. There were no pictures of the rifle at that time, and it was not known that this was Grandpa's rifle, except by me, 1 out of 8 billion people on Earth. And this is just one of the many things that I said that turned out to be true that no one else was saying. I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think it was a $2,000 scope. My dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has it. He's saying Grandpa, not grandfather, not granddad. He's using the exact words that I used. Grandpa, not grandfather, not granddad, Grandpa, and I tagged it as a Mauser military action in 30-06, sporterized.
IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me.
Talking about the serial number, I called that as well. Back on September 11th, I sensed that there was confusion in the shooter about the serial numbers, and I said it would be odd if the serial numbers weren't scrubbed. 30-06 would be consistent with the hit he took. Was the Mauser commercial or rebarreled military action, perhaps old enough to be untraceable? It would be odd if the serial numbers weren't scrubbed. This guy was talking about the serial numbers and that he was confused about whether or not they were present. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. Now look at what I said on September 11th. No one else in the world was saying this but me, 1 out of 8 billion. 30-06 would be consistent with the hit Kirk took. Was the Mauser commercial or a rebarreled military action, perhaps old enough to be untraceable? Nobody was saying that on the 11th. I was the only one saying that. It would be odd if the serial numbers weren't scrubbed. In fact, after I posted that, people were arguing with me. Other people don't have this gift. They can't see these things that I see. And I am not boasting or bragging. I am warning you that we are in tremendous danger. The lives of all humanity are in jeopardy. Please pay attention.
I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to. It was a $2K scope. I might have a stroke, all right. I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine.
Grandpa's gun. Who else on the entire face of the earth on September 11th was saying that this was Grandpa's gun but me? Nobody. Sounds like something from Grandpa's closet, a rechambered, rebarreled Mauser 98 Karabiner in 30-06 could be a sporterized military action.
IDK. I think that was a $2K scope.
$2,000 scope.
Wink, wink. Robinson again. Delete this exchange. Again, Robinson. My dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me, RN.
I was the only one who predicted the unique attributes of that rifle, which would mark it. And I knew that somebody was going to be able to see that rifle and know where that rifle came from. And I predicted that it was a Mauser 98K military action, sporterized with a synthetic stock, sporterized with a commercial floor plate, and had been rebarreled. And there would be no serial numbers on the barrel. If it was a Douglas barrel or a P.O. Ackley barrel, it would be highly accurate. I knew all these things, and this kid is saying, yeah, it was a true shooter. It shot true. It was a good rifle. There were no doubts about it. It was spot on. I predicted all of that. I discussed all of that, and I was the only one in the world to do that. And this is not unique for me. This is not anomalous. I do this every day. I do this all the time. All these big influencers rip me off and copy what I say because they know that what I say is credible. They know that I can foretell the future. They know that I have insights that no one else out of the 8 billion human beings on the face of the earth have. And my most important insight is my warning to you that the enemy is going to set about to kill all of us. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to get
Robinson.
about.
Since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy.
So now you've heard that he did want to punish Kirk for his talk about some groups or groups. You heard that Netanyahu was trying to pin this on the Muslims, and that all kinds of civil unrest has been brought about by this, and it was propaganda of the deed. Now, what does propaganda of the deed mean? Propaganda of the deed means that acts of terrorism are committed so that the government then has a pretext to tyrannically clamp down on our rights. I predicted that this would be utilized as propaganda of the deed, meaning that the government would utilize this as a pretext to attack our firearms rights and to attack our freedom of assembly and freedom of speech. And not only is Donald Trump, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, etc., calling for clampdowns on speech, Marco Rubio getting rid or canceling visas for people who exercise their fundamental human rights of free speech. We have all the influencers, including even Nick Fuentes, calling for severe cancel culture, getting everyone fired who says, who celebrates this idea that Kirk was shot. Cancel culture throughout the alt media is pushing that very hard. That indicates that this is propaganda of the deed. It creates a cycle where an act of terrorism is committed, which provokes a response. The act of terrorism is partially intended to be a reaction to and a protest against tyranny, but it then sparks increasing tyranny. And we see the response has been increasing tyranny, utilizing it as a pretext for pre-crime, for building up databases on everyone, for cancel culture, getting people fired, getting people deported and expelled from the United States. This is exactly what I had in mind when I said that this was propaganda of the deed and would have these effects. When the government becomes more tyrannical, the response from the public is increasing civil unrest and terrorism. That's the whole point of propaganda of the deed, is to generate a vicious cycle whereby acts of terrorism which shock the public serve as a pretext for the government to become even more tyrannical in response to the terrorism, which incites people to become even more terroristic and rebellious and engage in protest and riot and commit more acts of terrorism, which then causes the government to become even more increasingly tyrannical. And it's a vicious cycle, but it's done by design to provide a government with a pretext to become a tyranny, an autocracy, a dictatorship, but also to provide the anarchists and the Marxists with a pretext to engage in further propaganda of the deed, further acts of terrorism, and to incite the general public to rebel against the government, to rebel against the capitalistic leaders of society. This goes all the way back to the 1800s. And I called it, and it's exactly what happened. I foresaw exactly what was coming, and no one else was foreseeing that all these influencers would engage in promoting this cancel culture, which fits in exactly with the utilization of complete digital surveillance and compiling dossiers and profiles on every person and establishing pretext for pre-crime punishment of people. Instead of punishing acts, they are punishing people because they anticipate those people may commit an act. And I also called it that this was done. The motive for this was to punish Kirk, not to silence him. I've already gone over how I was proven right, and I was the only one on the face of the earth that said that this Mauser in 30-06 was Grandpa's gun. How could I have known that when I didn't even know the age of the shooter? I was the only one talking about how there would be confusion about the serial numbers and whether or not the gun would be traceable. And those are the exact expressed thoughts of Tyler Robinson, the shooter. I was reading his mind. And I published that on September 11th when nobody knew anything about this guy or what was going on. After I had predicted that the rifle would be a Mauser 98 sporterized. Sporterized means it would have a replacement stock, and it would have a commercial floor plate probably, or trigger guard, which this may well be. They would often modify the bolt slice slightly in a sporterization. They would replace the barrel. There'd be no rear tangent or leaf sight or whatever the hell it is on a 98K, and they would set it up for scope mounts. And they may or may not have replaced this trigger guard floor plate assembly to fit into this sporterized stock. But somebody had a great love for this rifle, and they either bought it this way or they put it together very carefully. And that's what I saw. That's what I envisioned. And then I pointed out that it was fully consistent with the reports and the shooting itself. I knew that that was probably what was the weapon that was used, and I knew it the day it happened. I was also the first one to talk about he's limping because the rifle is stuffed down his pant leg. And all kinds of people have picked up on this since I pointed that out, that you can see him limping. Now, the rifle, I don't know, the rifle may have had the stock unscrewed from the action and separated into those two major components of the stock and the barrel scoped action. That may account for why he had a screwdriver to drop the trigger guard floor plate assembly and separate the rifle from the stock. And he may have put those on his person in that disassembled state. He got that rifle there somehow without being seen. I said on September 10th, the day it happened, I'm surprised they haven't tried to blame Iran yet for the Charlie Kirk assassination. Days after that, Netanyahu came out and started talking about Muslim terrorists and how there's sympathy, the same way he did on September 11th, 2001. So I called that as well. I was the only one who observed that there appeared to be a magnet on Charlie Kirk's shoulder and underneath it and under the shirt, Mike. I did that on the day it happened. Subsequent to that, and I pointed out how the magnet came flying off his shirt right here when he got hit. And I was the only one who understood that that was a magnet that was holding an under the shirt Mike in place. People were trying to claim that that had something to do with a bomb or a blood pack or the bullet itself being seen flying around. But I was the only one on September 10th correctly pointing out that that was a magnet for an under the shirt Mike, which other people have now verified and vindicated what I said on the day it happened, shortly after it happened. I was also the only one, the first one, who pointed out and tried to draw as broad attention as I could to the fact that Charlie Kirk's autopsy, if it happened, was terribly rushed, and that typically in an autopsy, the body would be held for at least 2 days, held for a month, held for months, as new evidence accrued and new questions arose, as witness testimony happened. It is necessary to analyze the body to see the angle of the shot, to determine the exact cause of death, to determine the interventions that may or were not utilized to try to save his life, to determine the bullet path, the wound track, the nature of the wound, bullet fragmentation, to recover the bullet, to recover fragments of the bullet that may bear rifling marks that could tie it to this rifle just because this guy had this rifle and his DNA may be found on it, his fingerprints may be found on it. That doesn't mean that's the rifle that shot Charlie Kirk. If you find a bullet or bullet fragments with that match the rifling of that specific rifle, then you have identified the murder weapon. Until then, it remains an open question. And I was the one, and I was the only one who pointed out when they brought his coffin back, when J.D. Vance and his wife had that photo op with the coffin, with the cadaver, and with Kirk's wife, that what the hell is going on here? This autopsy was wrapped up, if it took place, well within 24 hours, perhaps in as few as 18 hours or 12 hours. We don't know. And we don't even know if it took place, though I suspect the law mandates that it had to take place. And this is a terrible anomaly, especially in such a high-profile, politically important assassination that has changed world history, that could lead to congressional hearings like the JFK assassination. I was appalled that no autopsy had taken place. And I pointed out from the movie and the real life guy, Buford Pusser, in Walking Tall, how he has now been believed to be the murderer of his own wife, which was not known until I think the body was exhumed or something. And these questions re-emerged. I suspect Charlie Kirk's body will be exhumed by the defense if he gets good lawyers. And there's going to be questions about if this autopsy took place. Why wasn't the body held longer for evidence analysis? Analysis of the angle of the shot. Was he hit in the shoulder or was he hit in the throat? Were there fragments flying around? Was his spine severed? Was his death caused by negligence or malpractice? That would affect the defense, even if the kid is convicted. If the spine was split and his death was caused by the body being jostled around, then that is the cause, even though the chain of events would not have happened had not he been shot. He would still be guilty of murder, but it may affect his sentencing if he is actually not the ultimate factual cause of the death. Did Charlie Kirk die from shock? Did he have a heart attack? Did he have a clot in his brain, a stroke? Did he have organ failure? What the hell was it? Did he bleed out? Did he suffocate, drown in his own blood, in his lungs? All kinds of things could have happened. Even though people think they know exactly what happened, they don't. There are a lot of, he could even have been poisoned. It's a physical possibility. There were obviously people out to kill him, to end his life. And though it is most probable his spine got split on the scene and he bled out immediately, we don't know that unless an autopsy has determined that. And I was screaming to the heavens, what about the Charlie Kirk autopsy? And I brought up all these issues that I was just discussing. Was there one? If not, why not? And I did that on September 12th, the second day after he had been shot. And his body was already returned. He was shot on Wednesday. It was sent to Phoenix on September 11th in the daytime. The shadows are long. I don't recall if that was morning or evening, but that is too soon after the shooting for his body to have potentially even been embalmed before being transported. There may be laws about it leaving the state where it has to be embalmed before it can do that. I don't know. I haven't looked into that. That's something worth investigating. But think of how little time, if it were embalmed, it arrives in Phoenix, Arizona the very next day. He is shot on the 10th and the body is already there on the 11th. It was a Wednesday and it's there on a Thursday. How could a proper autopsy have been conducted that way? And why wasn't the body held? As more and more evidence accrued, more and more witness testimony as a suspect was identified, there would be questions that further examination of the body could potentially answer. And it's inexplicable to me that happened. But I was the first one to start pointing that out. And I was screaming it all. I was posting it all over in other people's posts where they were showing that J.D. Vance had brought the body back on Air Force Two. This is another one of the posts. But people were arguing with me and saying an autopsy wasn't necessary, and I was pointing out how foolish that was. Wouldn't the coroner have to perform an autopsy on Charlie Kirk to gather evidence for trial, including bullet fragments, absolute proof of cause and manner of death, etc.? They are seeking the death penalty. Has the coroner given a press conference or issued a report, or he's called the medical examiner? So again, I have a public 30-year track record of doing exactly this, providing insights into things that no one else on the earth has. I've done it in all the major political events. With Obama, I predicted that he would issue a banker bailout before he had even been elected. I gave a personality profile, specifically pointing out all the things that Obama would do after he was elected, before he was elected, for his entire tenure, his 2 terms. And I called it all before it happened and warned about it. I do this all the time. I do this every day. Why does that matter to you? That matters to you because my entire life I have foreseen that the enemy of humanity was going to bring about horrors, unprecedented horrors on the face of the earth that would dwarf the 10 plagues that the Egyptians faced. And I have been telling people, and there's a public record of this, exactly what was going to happen, how it was going to proceed, how they were planning to attack Iran, how that fit in to their plans, which they utilize as prophecies. I published a book in 2006 where I thoroughly explained everything about Amalek and Esau and Rome and how they perceived European whites as being the descendants of the Romans, and were going to set about to exterminate us as the Amalekites and the Edomites. I foresaw in 2006 how they were going to commit genocide in Gaza and exterminate and drive out the Palestinians. I warned about how they would again and again attack Lebanon and then move against Syria, etc. I called that they were going to kill Nasrallah. I've been predicting all of these things in exact detail. I was the first one to bring out Coudenhove Kalergi and how I did that on Jeff Rense in 2007 and explained exactly everything about Coudenhove Kalergi and the desire to miscegenate Europeans out of existence, and that has been clipped and put all over the internet. I'm telling you, these influencers are setting us up to fulfill the plan and the prophecy of the enemy that Israel will become a pariah nation, that all the nations will turn against Israel, and then there will be a horrific war in which Israel will triumph and humanity will be completely exterminated. I have been predicting this for 30 years. I was shouting on internet radio in 2006 that they are going to create a mass anti-Semitic, partially neo-Nazi movement, and they would turn the whole world against America and against Israel, and that this would be done to herald the apocalypse, and that we have to fight back, but not in the prescribed manner of their plans, their ancient prophecies. In 2006, I was all over internet radio warning that they are utilizing their prophecies as plans and telling people I would be able to anticipate all the things that they would do because I had decoded Kabbalah, decoded the Talmud, decoded the Old and New Testaments, and I knew that what they were saying in their prophetic writings, I knew exactly what it meant, who the targeted groups were, how Europeans were targeted, how Iranians were targeted as the Persians, how the Iraqis were targeted as the Babylonians, how the Egyptians would be targeted. I was warning years before it happened that the Arab Spring was going to happen. This is all documented in my blog archives. I gave the specific nations. I gave the chain in which they would fall. I gave the leaders and the revolutionary movements which would perpetrate these things. I anticipated the coup d'etats against Erdogan in Turkey. I predicted the pivot of Turkey from NATO towards Russia and how that game would be played back and forth. I revealed that the Arab leaders were all crypto-Jews, that the House of Saud was a crypto-Jewish family. I revealed that in 2006 and how that would play out as Sunnis versus Shia. I explained everything that has happened since, years and decades in advance. I have this gift uniquely in all the world. I have this gift. I have suffered tremendously for putting my neck on the line for you to let you know that all these things are coming. I've warned you over and over again. I am here today showing you the proof that I, among all 8 billion, uniquely have this gift to tell you my insights that no one else on the earth has, that always prove to be true. And I am warning you, we have got to do something to stop this enemy, and that these influencers are being paid to deliberately fulfill the plans of the enemy, and that these influencers steal from me, but utilize my great gift to turn it against you and mislead you as Judas goats, as Pied Pipers into the slaughterhouse, at the same time that they refuse to mention my name, refuse to platform me. I've had several people who have interviewed me and subsequently refused to post the interviews on the web. They are organized against me to silence me at the very same time that they very corruptly steal from me. I've got to get this message out to the right people, people who are competent, people who are highly intelligent, people who have the means and the willingness to do something about this, because the masses are being manipulated to fulfill to the letter the prophetic plans of the enemy, and they're going to kill all of us if we don't do something to save ourselves, even just to save a small remnant of the best. I want to thank you all for listening to what I've had to say. Please get a paid subscription to my CJBbooks.substack.com. This is so vitally important. I have not put any portion of this behind a paywall. I want to thank all the wonderful people who have contributed to me through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and my cryptocurrencies. Thank you so much. Thank you for helping. You're a handful of people who have enabled me to keep going on this. I have spent my fortune and my life issuing these warnings consistently for 30 years. I am the only person on the earth who has predicted these things, and I have not wavered an inch in what it is that I have been saying for 30 years. And everything I've been saying has turned out to be true. So heed my warnings or die. Thank you all so much for watching. Beware the world to come.